All right, welcome to episode 6 of Market Analysis with Graeme Tennant here on SA Crypto. I'm James Preston, your host, and it's been a while. My apologies, Graeme. Had Blockchain Africa at Joburg, then Cape Town.
You've been a busy man.
And I guess with the rather low volatility of the price and fairly stable price action, I thought I had a bit of time.
Which you have had. You're lucky the price hasn't broken out of any structure.
So I was
you would have been in trouble.
I was lucky. So take us through what you're seeing at the moment. Some interesting developments that you and I have been chatting off mic here in the office. So take us through what you see.
Cool. So I think the price movement that we've seen has been quite fascinating. It's really kept us guessing and still is keeping us guessing to some degree. But what I really find interesting at the moment about what the price behavior we're seeing in the recent days and weeks has been a complete inverse type of price pattern to what we had in 2018. And just as a recap, if we zoom out, we had this descending triangle with a flat support zone here, and each time the price reached that support level, we had weaker buying action off that support. So it's a little bit like a trampoline that's losing its spring, and every time you jump, you get less spring until eventually the trampoline breaks and you fall straight through the trampoline.
Which is exactly what happened.
Which is what happened,
isn't it?
Okay, so that was, we talk about that drop quite a lot because that was a really significant move. And then what's fascinating for me is that we're now seeing an inverse of that type of price behavior. So now what we have, instead of a flat support zone, we now have a resistance zone to the top side of this price action. And what we're starting to see is we got 2 points so far. We expect to see more points potentially as we move further. And that is a support trend line. So here, the opposite analogy applies, where we have weaker selling off that support zone, rather off that resistance zone when we reach that level.
Right.
So that's quite optimistic from a bullish perspective, in my opinion.
Okay. Now, would my interpretation then would be, and you can correct me, but if we have a look at this descending triangle here, it took a long time for the break to happen, and it was because the volatility squeezed and squeezed until eventually we popped.
And you needed that contraction of volatility to almost store up that energy to then break through that very strong level of support.
Which is incredible to note. It's basic. It's purely based on market psychology. It's really just a whole bunch of buyers, a whole bunch of sellers responding to what happens in the market.
Waiting to see which way the market's going to move. And once you get that indication, that's when everyone jumped on board, or rather, hit the sell button.
Right. And so now my interpretation then would be, if you've just started to draw this pattern here, this ascending triangle, if you like.
Yep.
Would you then say that we're kind of looking at about this region here, which takes us to July this year, where we could see, or we should expect to see some action outside of this resistance line? Is that what you're implying with this trend line here?
So there's a couple options, and look, I'm going to pour a little bit of cold water on my original bullish sentiment, because there's some not such positive behavior here as well, and I will come back to what you asked, but just a little bit more context. So what we're looking at here is two head and shoulder patterns that both look like they're potentially going to fail. So here was the first head and shoulders,
which is just going to draw for us quickly. All right.
So that was our left shoulder, there our head, and then our right shoulder. And this is the problem, is that you want to have a really snappy right shoulder, because that shows you that there's a strong buying momentum or strong buying power behind that move. And what we got was this big right shoulder, which just takes all the steam out of that pattern.
Right.
And interestingly enough, we've seen that movie once, and now we're seeing it a second time, where again, and this is where when I got quite excited was around about the beginning of March, because here we had potentially a rising triangle and a head and shoulders within that rising triangle. And at this point, I would have been very keen to have seen this price move straight through that resistance level and that would have been the ideal time to get on board. But again, what we've seen now is this right shoulder is really getting long and low volatility and boring, and the other problem is that the momentum shown by the volume is disappearing. So this volume is falling down.
Right.
Okay, you can see that there. So that really has poured cold water on this pattern so far. So it's difficult, it really is difficult to say which way this market's going to move right now. I think your higher probability move is that we just continue this boring grounding sideways, but it can change really quickly. So I don't want to say, turn off your computer and come back, in May, where maybe we get to the end of this volatility funnel, when one spike puts us through that level, one spike down puts us below this level, and either way we move out of this pattern, I think we're going to get a fairly impulsive move.
Okay. For you, probability of upside or downside? Because obviously with the descending triangle, here, with this descending triangle, probability, you were very strong bear at that time.
So my bias remained on the bear side, because we were in that bearish trend.
So now, where's your bias standing in terms of everything you're analyzing right now?
So right now, the way that it looks, I'm still, I would say, more bearish than bullish, because again, we remain in this bear trend, and this price action is very disconcerting, because if we were turning bull here, we would see a much steeper, buying momentum there, and we're really going to need some proper power to get through this resistance. This is a strong resistance level, and this type of weak up grounding movement is not the power supported by hardly any volume that we need to push through this level.
Right.
So the more we go sideways and the more we kind of lose the energy and lose direction, the more my bias grows to the downside.
Okay.
So what I would be looking for from a bullish perspective is that we get one sec, let me grab the drawing tool, is that we get, a nice strong sell-off wouldn't be the worst thing here, and then to test this bottom trend line, at which point I want to see a nice aggressive buying, and we're probably going to bounce around this level, and eventually from a bullish perspective we hope that we then break that resistance and then move to the upside, which I think would be quite strong. And this is starting to look like a nice bottoming pattern if that's the direction that we're going to go to. Alternatively, there is always the risk that we fall to the bottom, and that probability is still fairly high because of the lack of power that we're seeing and the fact that we still remain in a bear trend.
Right.
So I would put it 60 to the downside, 40 to the upside.
Okay, well there we go. Graeme, thanks so much. Appreciate your time. We're going to hear from you if you do enter any of these trades, which you haven't done. So literally the last time you traded was the Litecoin trade about 2 weeks ago.
Correct. Yeah. So I haven't put any trades because the market just hasn't shown us its cards. It's kept us guessing. One thing to note that when Bitcoin is in this sideways grounding move, some of your low cap alts, they start to get excited because there's some price stability, at least in the mother market, which is Bitcoin, and some of those tend to pump. So I do keep half an eye on some of those alts. If I find a nice one that I think has got some potential, I'll definitely drop it onto the group, and hopefully we make a little bit of money off that. Well, keep us posted. We look forward to the next episode. We'll keep an eye on this ascending triangle and see what happens. Cool. Great. Thanks very much for your time. We'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks, James. Cheers. And that's it. That's it for this episode, folks, on the SA Crypto Market Analysis. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter. Just go to sacrypto.co.za, enter your name and your email in the bottom pop-up box that should appear on your screen, and you'll receive a once a week email newsletter with all the blockchain news in the industry from South Africa and around the world, and of course the best podcast, best tweets, and also follow us on Instagram. We've just started an Instagram account. These market analysis videos will be on Instagram as well, and a daily fact about the blockchain industry from around the world as well, so be sure to check us out. SA Crypto ZA is our username on Instagram. Cheers for now.